Hello and welcome to the Daily Brown Bag. Today we're going to be talking about net neutrality. I'm Chad Hill and I'm joined by Adam Stetzer.
Yeah, good morning, Chad. Welcome to our brown bag. Net neutrality is an interesting topic if you're not familiar with it. It's this idea that there's open access for everyone on the internet and everyone can have equal access. And the FCC has been pushing an agenda and even legal rules to force ISPs to play fairly among the big players and little players who all want access to people on the internet. But this breaking news, and I'm taking a look here, Chad, at Gizmodo. I know you also looked at CNN.com. The U.S. Appeals Court just invalidated some very important FCC net neutrality rules, which were geared at not playing favorites. So basically, I think what's happened here, Chad, I wanted to discuss the implications for internet marketing and the internet at large, is the rules that they have put in place were seen as an overreach, and the FCC really doesn't have the jurisdiction, is what this court's saying. So let's talk about the implications of what that really means for the little guy on the internet.
Right, and the specific thing about that was that the court said that that the internet is not a crucial utility as defined by current law, which I think is really interesting, Adam, because when you look at the internet and the damage it can do to a business by just having your internet connection down for a day, it's hard to believe that it isn't in 2014 a crucial utility. But I think the most important thing here is that what this means is that if this doesn't change and we don't have net neutrality, and it means that the big guys like Verizon and Comcast who control that wire into the business or into the home, what it means is they can start asking some of these bigger players, think about Netflix and some of the other Amazon even, and start saying that if you want to have guaranteed high-speed, unfettered access to the home that doesn't end up getting put in the slow lane, you're going to need to pay to play. So we think that the big guys, sure, I mean, they probably could pay something because clearly it's a service that that these guys would be willing to pay for. Something like Netflix, it's a very important part of their business. But I think we also have to think about, what does this mean for the small business? What this probably means for the small business is that there's not going to be $6.95 hosting anymore, because no one in their right mind is going to want to be investing in marketing a website that isn't on the fast lane. And what that means is that those hosting companies that currently host websites for $6.95 are going to have to increase their fees. So it will impact, I think, a lot of people, maybe some people directly, some people indirectly, but this is a pretty important change and ruling the courts have made here.
Wow, Chad, so there's a whole ball of wax here, so let's pick this apart. Net neutrality, it doesn't sound like it's that big of an issue, but the first point I want to get your feedback on is it seems like one arm of the government is saying this is not critical, so we can't over-regulate it, and yet if you look in the defense industry and everything you hear about cyber terrorism and the money that's being spent on cyber attacks, and we even hear this stuff in the news about putting viruses into nuclear power plants in Iran, and so the other side of the government is saying the biggest threat of the next decade is online. So I guess my first question, Chad, is doesn't that seem like a bit of hypocrisy, where one side of the government that's focused on commerce and big business is saying, no, hands off, this is not even that important to be a utility, and the other side saying, hands on, we need tons of money from Congress because the biggest threat we face in warfare and defense is actually on the internet?
It does seem so, but there's obviously three arms to our government, right? We've got one group that's interpreting current law, another group trying to administer those laws, and what probably it sounds like is that there's some gray area about what the law really says. So I agree, Adam. It seems like that's clearly got to be something that we address here.
And the other issue you brought up, which I think is fascinating, is this idea that the internet is not seen as a utility, which sounds like the sort of fine print and the leverage that they used to say this was out of scope for what the FCC could do. And then you start talking about services like Netflix and Hulu and online banking, and you start to really wonder, how can this not be utility? So it makes me want to see who are the lobbyists behind this. My guess is they are people who have a vested interest in saying that utilities are things like electricity, water, and your cable, and they want to keep your subscription dollars over on those utilities, keep their monopolies nicely locked up. And these are kind of threatening technologies. If other people can have access to people to deliver, for example, a movie through the internet at the same speed that they can do it through cable or through their own internet delivery, it just seems like they're trying to make the playing field unlevel and let the big guys win here. So I don't know if that's a jaded or a conspiracy theory, but do you see a little bit of that coming through in this ruling?
Yeah, and absolutely, and I think most people who are in favor of net neutrality said that I'm already paying that company to get this service, so why should they get to decide for my, let's say, $70 a month or whatever you're paying for high-speed access in either a business or at home. Why do they get to decide that, that they can restrict how much bandwidth a certain player gets to my house? So I think that that's really was the side of it, is that I'm paying the utility for the service. If they need to charge more, let the markets decide what they can charge to get good access to my home. But don't let them then decide who gets to in my house and who doesn't. I want that as part of the utility I'm paying for.
And the final point on this, when we start talking about net neutrality and utilities, of course, Chad, even in this conversation, we've gravitated towards Verizon, Comcast, Cox, Time Warner Cable as the natural bad guys. But the person I'd really like to hear from, the corporation I'd really like to hear from, is Google, because I know I've read that they've brokered quite a few deals before some of these rules were in place to make sure their search engine and results were much faster than other people's. In other words, exploiting net, non-neutrality with using their economic might to edge out other folks. And so I wonder if the definition of utility should be expanded to include search engines, and I'm sure Google would fight that very much because they very much want to remain in a very unregulated space. And you don't see them front and center in this discussion, but I have to wonder if they will be edged into this as this progresses. Well, that's our brown bag today on net neutrality. We certainly want to hear your comments. Put in your comments, let us know how you're feeling about this, and we hope you'll subscribe, and we'll see you back tomorrow on another brown bag.